Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, at the end of last year, legislation was enacted which gave effect to the Small Company Administrative Rescue Process. How will this process work, and more importantly, how will it assist struggling SMEs? Well, Minister of State with responsibility for trade promotion, digital and company regulation, Robert Troy joins me now to discuss the process in more detail. Minister, I've invited you onto this morning's programme to discuss the Small Companies Administrative Rescue Process, also known as SCARP. But why did the department feel it was necessary to introduce SCARP in the first instance?
Well, firstly, I think this is a game changer for many small and micro businesses. It offers them an opportunity to restructure in a more simplified, cost-effective manner. We have, as most businesses would be aware, the examinership process, which would be internationally recognised as a very good process for businesses that are in financial difficulties to restructure and to restart. But the costs associated with an examinership process can quite often be prohibitive to many small businesses. So this new summary rescue process is an administrative process and it is targeted for small businesses that have below 50 employees with less than annual turnover of 12 million per annum. And according to the CRO, that is 98% of businesses who operate in Ireland.
So talk to us about the differences between examinership and SCARP.
Well, the fundamental difference is that an examinership process commences by way of resolution of the courts. The SCARP process commences by way of the business applying to a process advisor, an insolvency practitioner, to commence the process. So if a small business comes together with an insolvency practitioner and their creditors, and if there can be an agreement to a restructuring process, it alleviates the need to go to the courts. And by alleviating that need to go to the court, it alleviates a lot of the costs associated with it, and it's more timely.
So talk to us about the features of SCARP and how it can be of assistance to struggling businesses.
Well, it's a business, and unfortunately there are many businesses currently who will be in need of this because of the trading restrictions of the last almost 2 years, the restrictions that were imposed because of the public health measures. This will enable businesses to look to restructure, to appoint an adjudicator who will bring their creditors together, will look at how they can restructure and negotiate a write-down. That write-down is then put to all the creditors. The creditors will have a vote on the restructuring. If they deem that the restructure is fair, they will accept it. And if that's accepted, then within a 70-day time frame, that process can be complete.
So talk us through the process from start to finish.
Well, at the very beginning, the company director will make an application to the process advisor. The process advisor will be appointed. The process advisor then has to write out to all the creditors, seek a detailed submission from them in terms of what is owed by the business to them. He will then look at that, bring the creditors together, put a proposal on the table. They will have a number of weeks to consider that proposal. Then they will have to either accept or reject it. If 51% of the creditors in terms of number and in terms of value accept the proposal, it will be accepted. If there's somebody who deems that the proposal is unfair or inequitable and rejects the proposal, they then have a mechanism to refer the proposal to the court, and the courts will then decide on whether it is fair or equitable. The proposal that is being put forward by the process advisor, it must be better than if the company went into liquidation. So all creditors must come out of this process or restructuring better than if the company was allowed to fail.
I'm hearing lots of anecdotal evidence that there's lots of landlords out there that haven't written off the debt that have been accumulated, let's say, during those months of which retail businesses were closed. Again, is SCARP the solution for that in terms of being able to write off property-related rental debt? And then secondly, is there an opportunity for retail businesses to be able to renegotiate leases that are just unaffordable and unsustainable at this stage?
Again, the success of SCARP is going to be largely dependent on the voluntary buy-in of all creditors. And we would expect that many creditors will buy in voluntary because they realise the environment that companies have had to trade in the last 18 months. They realise the position companies are in, and it makes sound economic sense to negotiate and to come to an agreement in relation to a restructure. However, there will be creditors, be it landlords, be it large creditors, be it institutions that will deem that they do not wish to participate. And when that happens, there is the opportunity to refer the system to the courts, and the courts will intervene similar as they would in an examinership process.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that about 70,000 businesses in Ireland have availed of the Revenue's debt warehousing scheme over the past 2 years. The revenue are going to be an important cog in this particular wheel for this scheme to actually work. What have the Revenue said to you in terms of their support for it?
Well, we've engaged with Revenue, and they have been very engaging since we commenced the legislation to give this effect. They do have an opt-out clause, but they have assured us that that will only be used in the cases where they deem that somebody is trying to pull a fast one, to trying to restructure and to avoid paying their tax. But if they deem that there is a legitimate restructuring process ongoing, they will participate.
And I know that one of the core reasons behind the development of SCARP is that examinership itself was just cost prohibitive for SMEs. So what level of savings can be achieved through this new process for SMEs?
Well, again, I suppose it will largely depend on the complexity of the case. Obviously, more complex cases will require more work and will be more expensive. But typically, you're looking at the region of 10 to 15,000 for this process versus an average examinership case is in the region of 100,000. So there is substantial saving between the two schemes.
And have you any indication at this early stage as to how SCARP is being received by SMEs and how many are going to take it up?
I can't answer how many is going to be taken up, but there has been very broad welcome to this new scheme. ISME, the Small Firms Association, Restaurant Association, and others representative bodies had engaged all the way along in relation to when this scheme was being devised. They had called for it. They said there's an urgent need for it, and they've welcomed the commencement of the scheme. I don't believe we'll actually see the scheme being utilised fully until such time as government supports begin to taper off. Many businesses that are in a lot of difficulty at the moment, you mentioned yourself a moment ago in relation to businesses availing of the tax warehousing, there's businesses availing of the COVID restriction support scheme, the wage subsidy scheme. As those schemes are tapered off, and as the state supports are tapered off, that's going to call into question the viability of some companies. Unfortunately, some won't survive. What we want to do is ensure the ones that do have a reasonable prospect of survival have an opportunity to restructure, restart again, save that business and protect the jobs that are associated with it.
And what sectors do you expect to utilise this scheme more than others?
It's open to all sectors. As I said, 98% of companies registered in the CRO will be eligible to avail of this scheme, and every sector will be able to utilise it. I suppose, the sectors that have been most adversely hit over the last 18 to 24 months has been the hospitality sector, the tourism sector, retail sector, some people in transport. So I would imagine they will be the people who will avail of it the most. But the most important thing is it's open to all sectors. 98% of the companies registered on the CRO will be able to utilise this scheme. So what I would say is, if you have a business that it has a reasonable prospect of survival, that is going through a particularly difficult trading period at the moment, consider utilising this scheme. Consider restructuring your debts, starting again, save your business and protect the jobs that are associated with it.
And finally, Minister, what is your economic outlook for the year ahead?
Look, the sound basis of our economy is sound. We have been one of the only countries in the EU last year who had seen a positive increase in our GDP. We have a strong multinational base here in Ireland, and that has underpinned our economy. But we also have, because thanks to government supports, have been able to protect many of our businesses over the last 12 months, which we want to continue to do, and that's why we want to utilise this scheme to ensure that any of these viable businesses will be able to restructure, restart again.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Minister Robert Troy, and I hope that the SCARP scheme will help viable SMEs that may be struggling at this current time.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.